So this is Simon's GR Yaris behind me. It's come to us for the 3 most important things if you want to take your GR out on track. Number 1, most important, a Sump Baffle Kit. So now the engine is all prepped up and we don't use any razor blades or anything like that on this joint face. It is just a gasket scraper, metal gasket scraper, and then Scotch-Brite so that it doesn't damage any of the surfaces. And then we'll wait for kind of an hour, let this oil seep down, and then we'll wipe it off clean before we actually bond the metal sump pan in after it's got its baffle kit in it. When you're hard on the brakes, all the oil moves forward, and on the GRs, the oil pressure will flick down and then pop back up again. You won't see it on the stock management system, but as soon as you have a Cyvex, we can see it every time you're hard on the brakes and the car's dancing and moving around. The oil pressure will drop and it will flick down and then pop back up again. So we can log all of that, but on a stock car and stock management, there's no safeties built in, so you have to monitor it, make sure the oil's topped up. You can put 1/4 of a quart more oil in the engine to try and prevent it, but it doesn't stop it. So first thing, you must have an oil baffled sump if you're going to take it on track. The second thing is the brakes. So the brakes in this car have completely had an overhaul here with us at SRD, and it has high temperature silicone boots. It has now got the vented pots in the calipers as well to dissipate more heat into the braking system instead of, you know, getting that brake fade. And the other thing as well, as it's now got its endless brake pads and stainless steel backing shim. So that's going to improve the feel of the brake pedal, the bite, and how much temperature the brakes can put into the system and not give you fade. Fitting the BCB vented pots isn't too hard, just a bit messy, and take your time, be careful. You need to hook the seals out after you have used a little bit of compressed air just to put the pistons out to their furthest reach. As you can see, that's how we done it here. A little block of wood, a little bit of an airline, and then equally move the piston out with the brake caliper until both the boot and the piston come free. You can see it's just quite messy. You get quite a lot of brake fluid everywhere. So you just need to take your time, make sure you're wub, and you can clean up the brake fluid. It is very acidic, so don't get it on your skin. Once that's done, we have already pre-greased all the seals and all of the cylinders that the pots will be going in as well. So they do supply that in the kit. They supply the grease that you need to be able to do this. Then just work the seal back into the caliper, and then we actually use some silicone spray on the silicone boot. Once it actually pops in, when you've done both of these seals on the caliper, if you use some of that silicone spray, it means that it's a lot easier to get it over the receiving lip on the brake caliper to hold this high temperature silicone boot in. It is a little bit fiddly, and you just need to take your time, and you will eventually get there with it. And then you've obviously got to do a complete bleed of the whole system. Whilst the car was with us, we also did do brake lines as well. Everything was to improve the braking system. It took a little bit of force to get it in, but you can see straight away that there was no force really necessary to get that in. It wasn't caught up on any of the seals. And then you can see we just massage that seal back in. But they do have a tendency to kind of stick if you put them in crooked at all. So just take your time and gently press them in, and they will just pop in perfectly, just like you saw there. We did give the brake calipers a clean up as well afterwards, just to make sure that there was no brake fluid left on any of the paint, peel all the paint off as well. But they are slightly taller, these pots for these brake calipers,
which means you've got to be very careful on thick shims. Yeah, that is it. That is the install, and here we are just nipping some of the brake unions up and starting to bleed the system. It's not too intensive, but just you need to take your time, you need to be safe, you need to make sure everything's marked on the braking system. Did you show your missus you're YouTube famous now?
I've done, yeah.
And then the third thing that this car has had is it's got a diff cooler on the back of the car to keep the diff temperatures down. It obviously helps the quality of oil in the rear diff. You can do more laps, hot laps out on track without having an over temperature or overheating the rear diff in the car. So there's my 3 top tips that I think you should definitely do if you are taking your GR out on track. Is 100% baffled sump. Next is the brakes and the seals and pistons, and the third thing is either a diff cooler or cooling channel underneath the car to try and keep the rear diff cool. Other than that, Simon, your car is now all finished, and we hope you have a really good journey on the way home. I also dynamically balanced all 4 wheels on this car because Simon actually said he had a vibration. So it's now dynamically balanced and all set up.
One last thing to do, and that is to strap it and put it on the dyno and do a little power run. So look at this dyno graph. It's got a very healthy 252 wheel horsepower and 259 foot-pounds of torque. But look at what the graph's doing at 5,500 RPM. It falls totally flat. And that is a really good sign that the car wants to make power, but it can't. The ECU's holding it back. This car would very much justify a remap so that it can reach its 300 wheel horsepower potential using the stock turbo, stock intercooler and stock pipework. The only thing that will need to be changed is the intake kit and an exhaust system, and you will reach 300 wheel horsepower, and it will do it. It's just this stock ECU is holding the power back.